Welcome back to Cool Clubs Reviews, powered by S3 Technology. Today we've got something awesome to talk about, technology that's never been seen before, given to you, the golfer, for the first time. It's been done before, Mark?
Yeah, they do it for tour players, 3D printing and stuff, but not anything that you've been able to buy off the shelf for sure.
Right, so they've finally brought it to the masses, and I say that bit tongue-in-cheek, there's 500 sets on the planet.
Right, I want one, but I'm not probably going to get one. But,
yeah, I think we might be out of luck.
yeah.
This is called the Cobra Limited. I mean, limited because there's 500 sets, and this is the best technology I think I've seen in an iron product ever.
Yeah, this is definitely game-changing to some extent. I mean, like I said, they've been experimenting and doing, for tour players, they'll 3D print some stuff, and the technology is getting cheaper and cheaper over time and getting more and more advanced. But, to be able to 3D print clubs, for a reasonable enough price to sell them, is something kind of we haven't seen before on a production kind of model. So.
And 3D printing has not really been brought to metal and those kind of things to the consumer because it's kind of a little hard to print something that can be that durable, right?
Yeah, well, that's not entirely true because like BMW's actually been printing like their water cooler fans for years and stuff because they can make little modifications, reprint them, and do it again and change flows and stuff. But this is obviously a lot more, finished, right? This is not a propeller sitting in a thing you're not seeing. I mean, it looks really clean, and the finishes are fantastic, and it kind of opens up a whole nother thing to all the manufacturers.
And that's the point, right? This is really like an untapped landscape of how to build a golf club. We now got engineers' brains that are going to be going into 3D machines and trying to work out how do we make golf clubs better than they've ever been before using this tech. So let's jump into this specific product. This has been 3D printed, and you print 32 irons in one sitting.
Right.
And it's kind of this really cool rack. Hopefully we'll give you some overview of what that looks like. But essentially they print the whole body and this lattice structure that you can see exposed. I guess that's kind of a cool thing. They show how that tech is.
Yeah.
That runs all the way through the head, other than very heel and very toe, and they whack huge amounts of tungsten in the bottom there.
Yeah, this is something we actually play around with. We got a 3D printer. We print a lot of small parts for like loft and line machines or for R&D stuff. And what's cool about the 3D printers is you can either print it, full density, so make it really dense and heavy, make it very strong, or you can kind of separate that and do like, basically honeycomb devices inside and make it very light and still have the same sort of shape to it. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in these clubs. It's really cool that they're able to do this with irons. I mean, think of it down the line. I mean, you could theoretically, right, if you've got 3D printers and this technology gets cheaper over time, which it will, you could customize a set for you different from me or whatever. You could 3D print and say, I want more, my CG further out towards the toe or whatever, and just print them up. That's really cool.
Well, you just touched on one of the main points, right? So the whole deal with printing the lattice inside is it's weight saving.
Right.
Same with drivers, with the carbon on top. They're trying to save weight. So they've printed the lattice structure all the way through to save the weight so they can throw that tungsten really, really low.
And a lot of tungsten, right?
And a lot of it.
Yeah.
So they've gained in two areas. They've gained super high MOI from heel to toe.
Right.
And they've dragged that CG down lower.
Right. Both of those are great. Obviously, heel to toe is great because it's stability, right? Less dispersion right and left. And the other advantage, obviously, you get the CG really low. You launch it higher. You can spin it less, gets affected by wind less. There's a lot of advantage to that.
So we've been lucky enough, all these OEMs, they trust S3 technology, they appreciate what we do, we hope, and we put this on the robot. So we are the first ones out here to give you robot-tested, independent data on the Cobra Limited iron. This is groundbreaking.
It did pretty well.
Pretty
say
well?
The least, yeah. It was actually the highest tour rating we've ever seen is 4.6, and it's kind of a rounding thing in there. It might be in some of the 4.6s, but actually for a tour club, as far as forgiveness and stuff, it's one of the highest we've ever tested.
Ever tested. And forgiveness, we're looking at graphical data here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, for the same sort of size clubs. If you look at the player test we did, it's a 4.4, which is actually, there's lots of clubs that are bigger than that aren't as forgiving.
Yeah.
So for the size of it, it's incredibly forgiving, which is huge.
Let's touch on the size, just to give people an idea. Cobra Forge Tech is kind of their forgiving iron. Cobra Tour, King Tour, is their blade almost, player's iron. This is about the same size as the Tour, if not a little smaller, with less offset. So we're talking almost like a blade style club with all the tech of Forge Tech X, well, more tech than Forge Tech X.
Yep.
This is an incredible, incredible iron. Take a look at the graph here. Look at how small that landing group is.
Yeah, that's part of the reason it did so well on the tests and stuff. Obviously, how far away from the pin, I think you said Tom looked into this data a little bit, and And from a distance from the pin all around, it was actually one of the best we've ever tested, right?
Again, I mean, this links into being...
We're only doing it for a couple of years, but still, it's, you know, there's still 50, 60 clubs in here.
Yeah, so it's super, super tight from mishits.
Yep.
And you'll see this on the graphs that are popping up right now. The carry with the 80 mile an hour test is 158, so decent.
Yeah, it's
but
decent.
it's a 31 degree 7-iron, so we're bordering into like higher lofted 7-irons there.
Yeah, I mean, just to keep in mind, you know, they've got some other clubs in here too, like their Forge Tech, which is one of the longest clubs we tested. You know, that's 29.5. It's only going 5 yards further, which is not much, and that's a hot face.
And we also tested this at 90 miles an hour because we know that shape's so small. We're going to see players at both categories wanting to play.
Yeah,
this.
if you look even at the PGA Tour, right? So you know, years ago, you'd say how many players are actually playing blades, and you know, Titleist gave us a really good information thing. I thought it was kind of cool. 80% of the tour players play mixed bags. I could definitely see these going on mixed bags with, you know, maybe fully forged in the short irons, but I mean, why not a whole set?
Right. I mean,
Right? I mean,
this
if you're
is
a tour player. It's not big and bulky.
It's not. It's the opposite, right?
Right.
This is almost like the Ricky Fowler style blade. This is
Yeah.
a true blade kind of thing. With the tour test at 90 miles an hour, it's carrying 180 yards,
180 yards. Yep.
which is a monster.
Yep.
This thing is just the best thing I've seen in kind of iron technology. I'm not saying it's the best iron in the world, but in terms of technology, this thing is.
It's definitely
up there.
in a category almost by itself. There's a couple clubs like this, but not many. That's, you know, really pretty forgiving, but really good on the tour test. So really tight dispersion, spin consistency was really good.
Yeah.
You know, like you would expect from a blade or a face that doesn't really, you know, flex much.
So there's one trade-off, and I'm not going to say it's bad, and it kind of happens with these type of irons a little bit.
Yeah, the stopping power is not great. It's a 3.9, obviously. And, you know, we've seen 3.2s and stuff like, you know, some of the really strong game improvement clubs. So it's not, you know, bad by any means, but, you know, obviously you get a little trade-off when you get all that ball speed and height and stuff. So
Right. And realistically, if you're comparing this to a blade, which has got a bunch more loft, which creates spin, like, of course they're going to be better in stopping power than this thing.
Even at the 80 mile an hour test, it was 3.8, which is still decent, right? I mean, if you look at like the Forge Tech X, which is one of the longest clubs we ever tested, obviously in that group, 170 yards with a 80 mile an hour swing is a long way. You know, that was 3.2, so it's still, and even the Forge Tech itself is 3.5, so 3.89, I mean, it's still decent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a small drawback, but it is a drawback.
The last piece we try and do for these kind of things is normally put a handicap range on it, just to give people an idea, right? It's not set in stone, but this is probably too hard to call.
I mean, certainly a tour player can play this, no
Right.
problem. I mean, there's plenty of tour players playing T100s and stuff like that, so I mean, I don't see any reason why not, but I mean,
We got to go
high?
to teens, right?
Yeah, 15,
Because
easy.
it's super forgiving.
Yeah, maybe even 18 if you're, you know, a decent ball striker. The one thing I will say for higher handicaps, though, it doesn't have a lot of offset.
Yeah.
So if you tend to slice it or whatever, that's probably not going to be the best club for you.
There you
But
go.
if you're a decent player and you hit it fairly good, or you draw it, hook it, yeah, I think 18 could probably handle it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you heard it here first. This thing is the most impressive technology I think we've seen in an iron for a long, long time.
It opened up a whole bunch of doors, right? So there's all kinds of interesting things that could happen going forward. So
Watch this space. If you get your hands on a set, well done.
yeah, exactly.
Subscribe to our channel. We've got some awesome content coming this year. Way more robot reviews, loads more S3 technology. Watch this space.
Yeah, we're planning on being here a couple times a week, so we'll see you guys a bunch.